We are on here, so there's 20 minutes on this one. Hi people, start live video, can I see everybody? Checking connection, can I see everybody? So then, if you can't see yourself, so then just move yourself so you can be seen. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Oh, okay, so then, we want to turn it landscape then? Yeah, let's do it with landscape. So that's recording 20 minutes. So, wonderful artist people.
Well, there's 7 people already. Who are these people?
So just say hi to the world. Hello, people. So how can it would be good, let's start by saying who you are, yeah, what your practice is, and 2 or 3 words that might talk to your work. Yeah. So guess I'll start. So a Jamu, I'm fine art photographer and archivist, founder of the Ruckus and Black LGBT Archive. So 2 to 3 words that might be part of my practice. I think pleasure is one of them. Erotic is one of them. Intimacy is one of them. Part of the process. Anyone else want to just...
Well, if we go clockwise or anti-clockwise, then we almost...
Let's not do that.
Right. My name's Nosheen. I'm the director of Glitch Film Festival and co-curator and artist and designer. My personal work, sexual colonialism, breaking boundaries.
Oh, I think the Glasgow
My name is Claire. I'm an essayist, a writer, but foremost an essayist, I'd say. I'm a blogger, an author, and I write about feminism, gender, sex, sexuality, the politics of the body, that kind of thing. But if I had to describe my work in a few words, Black lesbian feminism.
I'm Kareem. I am a writer and an artist. I run a party called Body Party, and it started as a club night, and now it's not that anymore. So lots of my work is about figuring out what it is now, because it's still something. 3 words. It's difficult. I think, 3 words would be Jamaican, queer, and let's say radical.
Are the 3 words related to what your interests of your practice are? Is that
Both. Yeah, I feel like they apply to both.
Yeah. Either or.
Okay.
There's no boundaries here. Hopefully.
I'm Raju. My practice is as a visual artist, I guess interdisciplinary, so I started off with mostly performance-based work because I was really interested in the body and bodies in general and how bodies are connected and disconnected from each other. And now I've moved more to, I guess, looking at other objects or structures or other kind of materials or structures that are obstacles or are vehicles for connection and disconnection. So, print, sculpture work, video, and my own words, I guess, would be body and bodies. intimacy, conversation, maybe not intimacy, I feel like conversation and collectivity,
I'm Ray. I'm artist based here. Yeah, I like started off in like zine, making zines and things like that. But I guess have like an image, like a practice region, like image of photography. But like now there's that into like video and sound and like event programming and those sorts of things. And I guess Limbo would be my first word because that's like what my research is around, the dance, but also the wider connotations, fatigue and joy.
Can we move the because we can't see so we need to get Ray into the frame, that's better. So what we're going to talk about as artists.
There's so much, isn't there?
Well, I find it quite complex claiming the term artist because my work is written, it's the written word. And also in terms of questions of legitimacy, coming here under the label of artists when this building is somewhere I've always felt really quite displaced and very conscious of Glasgow's intense history with the slave trade and how, okay, it's beautiful architecture, but also it was funded through the slave labour of black people, and that creates some like complicated feelings, yeah.
So do you feel like you don't want to be here under the premise of being an artist, or
No.
just in general you don't want to be here?
Oh no, I do. I definitely want to be here. It's just I had never quite imagined the possibility of being here when I was younger and came to this building to engage with art. Like I had never in a million years thought there would be a context where I would be here as artist. So it's nice, complicated but nice.
I think for me, I'm given the history of the building, and I'm given the fact that it's also a beautiful building at the same time. It's always about how they do then hold those tensions, and they keep kind of flipping to and fro from, because every that history is in the room with us now, and then yet there's still beautiful artwork on the wall at the same time as well.
But I think you can sort of, have you all been downstairs?
Briefly,
Can you move in the
Exactly. I was talking about it with a friend when we came to see the show downstairs, that like that main space is where you both sort of feel the weight of the history of the building at its most. Also because there's I've yet to see an exhibition has never properly functioned in that space because of the weight of the architecture. It really in my head should really be some sort of discuss of event-based space. Anytime you try and put art in there, no matter what the art is or how energetic the creative is, there's always something about it that fails and feels uncomfortable. And I guess we were sort of thinking about that in relation to the buildings issue, why how you can't negate or undo that, and it's really present.
Yeah.
I guess less so opinion, but particularly in that space, it's quite jarring.
What did you think of that show? I mean, I only saw it very, very briefly. When you read about it before seeing it downstairs. Yeah, I agree with the feeling of being there's kind of claustrophobic underground feeling, right? And it's quite interesting. But yeah, I have nothing to say to that. I agree. It's interesting how some exhibitions work and how some don't, right? And why.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny because across the board, nothing works in that space. They've been trying to build walls and have that. It's just quite. Anytime food in the road before it. But yeah, I just think they should stop going to exhibitions and that's
I mean, I feel like I don't know this space that much. I get also reminds me of like any other museum, like any other space that also has problematic histories, I guess. Yeah.
There's also something you said about legitimacy that I thought was interesting too. Like, I still find it difficult to describe myself as an artist or like what I do as art. And I think that has a lot to do with the environment which black, brown, queer artists find themselves in most of the time. Lots of artists. I think I was talking to my friend about it the other day and how artists, like black artists, and it's not like black artists in the 60s or the 70s and how what compelled them to even describe themselves as artists when really like we kind of see that time as art, calling yourself an artist is essentially the same as criminalizing yourself or like at least being some sort of like cousin to making a living outside of like orthodox. So it's interesting how the word artist is used and why as well and where, I guess when. Yeah, it's just interesting. Legitimacy, I guess, is an interesting word to use as well when you think about it.
The politics of who can be seen as legitimate and who can't, and what's legitimate for me to do. Yeah.
What do you think?
I was having a conversation with
On the train.
on the train up front, yeah. And basically, I was saying that I think that lots of black and brown queer work, I think that we get caught up in the content of the work. And so basically, they get caught up in the politics or whatever. And that's important. And but then actually, I was saying actually, it's not very often that I'm with a group of black and queer artists or black and brown artists, and whether we talk about making work, the process of the work, and for me then, because we spend a lot of time talking about the content, the museums and galleries could then co-opt the work under education and diversity and inclusion. Yeah, and so basically, for me, I'm always curious around kind of if an artist writes, and they then choose to then write with a barrel pen as opposed to a fountain pen or whatever. Those are little things I'm curious around that part of the process, yeah. And then, and so one of these grand kind of narratives are always part of the conversation. There are the other conversations that I don't think we have about the making work and what's going on when we then make work. And of course then that then might then be linked to what things we couldn't access to make the work. Whether it's going to be film as opposed to video or so on and so forth. So many those things will then come into the frame now, but I'm just curious around the making work, because then I still think that the making and the process is not as political. However, I don't think we frame it as being political. We seem to just...
I think it gets erased in a way.
Yeah. Was that around Bobby Down for a second?
Just thinking about how everything costs money.
You're right.
So you can't be an artist if you don't have money. And it's kind of that simple. No, I think so, because to create something that participates in the economy of the art world, then according to the people who deem it valuable, which are people who have money, then yeah, I mean, there's different types of art, there's different ways to make art, but if you want your work to sell and for your professional career to be deemed as an artist who makes money, and for your work to be bought and sold by galleries like this one, then you need money to make work. It's that simple.
I just have an issue with it because I feel like we're always letting other people define who we are as artists, rather than saying, this is who I am as an artist, this is what I need. And I think we're always kind of measuring ourselves to what the art world considers valuable, and what we'll consider successful and all of that. And I just feel like for me it's important to kind of move away from those spaces defining my practice and my art. But I also think there are other ways to make art, and if I look back in history, there are so many artists who didn't have resources, who didn't have money, and were making artwork. So I think that is something that is possible. It's just rethinking what that artwork would be or how we would make it. But I agree that there is a lack of access to resources, and that does affect, mostly black and brown bodies, working class bodies, and people who can't access those spaces, like art school spaces and stuff like that. But I think there are other ways to make art.
Yeah, I mean, writing, like we said, it was such a difficult way to say that you're an artist, but it's like the most basic kind of way, like a painter or somebody who's drawing something. You don't need to be anywhere, you don't need to have anything other than the tool, right? But that's a really romantic way of looking at it. And I also don't think that it is, I don't know how to move away from that, because it's like breathing without air, or like speaking about capitalism in a way that you can't talk about capitalism without being a participant in it. So that's how I see the creation and the circulation of art works.
But capitalism also makes us feel like we're in a debt economy, or we're always on, but we don't have what we have is based on value and monetary value, and kind of erases the other side of a lot of value. And I think as artists of colour, as people of colour, we have so much knowledge, we have so much resource that isn't maybe monetary or financial, but is really important to kind of value. So I think for me it's not about being romantic, it's about reminding ourselves that we actually we're not marginalised, because that's what institutions want us to think as well. We have power, we have resources, it's just not what the art world considers valuable and would want from us, So I don't say it in a romantic sense, I just think for me it's important to reclaim what we do have. And a lot of the time, like I was saying when I trained to you, that, we have so many resources, but there's also this desire to be seen by these institutions and this art world, that we don't work collectively, we don't share our resources with each other, we don't build infrastructure like cooperatives or spaces that we can actually share our resources with each other. And I think just seeing some projects kind of doing that, it's so amazing how you can actually do that. So I think I do think there is this harsh reality, but I think it's also how you think about it as well.
So then a slightly mischievous question. Then is there room for romance in terms of our politics and the work that we do as well?
Yeah, I think survival is romantic.
If I were to give up any aspect of joy, then it's really not that radical or sustainable or weird in any way for people of colour.
I'm kind of hearing the word joy come up a few times so far. Hopefully we can.
Sorry?
I'm saying I'm enjoying hearing the word joy crop up.
That's interesting, yeah.
I think there is a reality that we need to hustle and we need to survive and eat and pay bills, and all of that. I think for me it becomes difficult when we associate that that's how we have to make our art practice.
But I don't. Sorry, continue.
I'm just saying personally for me, because that's what I've been doing, and I feel like it's been really detrimental to my practice, to my health, to everything. I've been being able to pay my bills, but I'm considering now even separating them, and having a day job and doing my practice separately. And I think lots of artists kind of go through this thing now, thinking about that. And I think it is, you know, the ideal, the utopia is like, oh, to be making money from your practice, but the reality is it's just such a dirty art world.
Exactly, that's the thing. If the goal is that, then what is making art? If you're supposed to make work for a gallery to commission you, or if you're meant to make work that is meant to make loads of money, then surely the process, like you said, like it's going to affect the work that you make. And so then, yeah, like I'm not interested in making work that isn't seen. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So to me, I just see it as a waste of my talent and my time, because I think that I've spent, personally me, has spent a lot of time crafting, you know, the things that you, the tool in your toolbox that you need to make work. And so for work to be deemed valuable outside of my mum's living room, unfortunately I have to speak to a bunch of editors and magazines that don't give a shit about what, how difficult it is to be queer. And so that is, I'm not trying to like be that way and you going that way. It's more like a circle. I think it's more like, well, because I've been in situations where I've made work not for the purpose of having it published anywhere, or I've made work for the sake of bringing my friends together, and for that to be it. Like it's just, you know, somewhere for us to hang out. But yeah, like you can't. I think my point as well was that nothing is pure, so it's like you go in with the intention of bringing all your friends together and having a great time and, you know, creating and sharing joy. But there are bouncers on the door who need to get paid, and the reality is, and so it's neither or. It's not, you know, just this brutal, grim apocalypse, but at the same time, I don't know how to make work without an institution, or I don't know how to make work without a magazine. I don't know how to make work without a cinema to screen my film. So,
and you should have access to those spaces. And
that's my
you
point.
should want to show your
That's
work.
where I'm
And I think that's totally valid. I just think that that's a really contested space, and it's a really violent space. And then it's a question of what needs to happen. And then, you know, this Undercommons book publication that scares me. You asked us to read. You know, it speaks about that. About can we actually change anything? You know, can these things be changed? Or, you know, what does it take? And I think I've been for so long like thinking, oh, I'm going to infiltrate the institution, I'm going to change it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's just so tiring, it's just so draining. I don't know what it takes, I just want to get it down sometimes.
I think that the Undercommons is a really useful text, because not only have I been selfishly able to apply it to lots of different things that I'm working on, but at the same time, it's like one of those things that doesn't. It's like the best self-help book that I've read. You know what I mean? It basically, it's like about navigation rather than offering any solutions.
It's about being in that contested space.
It's about being in the space, rather than,
But knowing it for what it is, I guess. Knowing where you stand within it all. But then what about preservation? That's another question.
Yeah, and sustainability as well.
And capacity.
The co-author of my first book, I've written a book with Nikesh Shukla about race and society for children. And working with him, I think, because he's been writing for a lot longer than me, has given me a few insights into how, well, perhaps it won't enable structural change, but he's certainly opened my eyes to how I can bring more young and not necessarily young, but new writers of colour into the scene. Like whenever I have the power to commission, I try and follow his example and look for people that wouldn't necessarily be the go-to voice. And there's just something so beautiful about the way he goes about that and bringing more people into conversations and opening doors for people. But for me, I think that really changed. It gave me a lot of hope and made me think, okay, maybe it's not going to change the entire publishing industry. It's not going to bring about the revolution, but this is a small, kind of sustainable bit of good that, well, anybody could hypothetically bring in.
The micro.
Yeah.
There's always good people in institutions as well.
Yeah.
Yes, like alongside doing those sorts of things, like with this last, I've been thinking about this last, the last project which I did where I was like making art, which was like for GI, and it being a point where I was like too tired to do anything, or like didn't like feel, but then I was like, okay, if I do this money, I don't make this money back. And so then I was thinking about like how to make it like work for me and like actually just like me this time. And so like part of the installation, I used the production budget to buy this like really expensive SAD lamp, which like after the exhibition was like finished, I was like, how?
It's a difficult one because sometimes they want to claim that stuff back, don't they?
And I also like went on this situation where I like watched it and I was like, oh, this is mine, no, it's yours. But like on this occasion, because it's like the face and like it's and like additional photo frame that I'm used to like put photos on to get to my mum.
That's an encouraging story. I like that.
That was just like, that was also in the context of me like having 2 days to put together like make the art for the exhibition that opened in 2 days. I was like, okay, what do I need to do? That is a lot. And yes.
Maybe, Michelle, you can speak a little bit because you set up Glitch and you're doing a lot of organising and creating your own kind of infrastructure in a way.
I mean, similar to what you were saying before about coming from a DIY background and not having any spaces. And I don't feel, I feel okay to walk into the CCA, for instance. I've been going for years and I don't feel comfortable. But then I don't see a lot of people of colour in there at all doing the business. And there's another reason to use that space, and it's just perfect. And we got it for free, so that was just incredible. And in terms of film, I mean, it's no surprise, but the film was incredibly racist, and all the mainstream queer film festivals. There's just barely any films made by queers of colour, and they don't do their research at all. I feel it's just, there's no artists, there's no filmmakers, we don't know anybody. You know, it's like you spend 2 days online, you talk to people, you do the research, and there's hundreds of people out there making films. I think that's important to give people exposure on this platform. Also, with Glitch, it's the content doesn't have to be queer either, which I think is pretty big. And it frees you up. It's like you don't have to make films about race. You know, it's like you're an artist. You make work about what you're passionate about. Not be pigeonholed.
That's powerful, giving artists the opportunity to be a whole person, everyone, part of the person.
Yeah.
So you set it up because you didn't see anything else?
No, for years. You know, it's just, it's that whole thing about not seeing yourself reflected in the imagery constantly. It just chips away at you. Or just the same old stereotypical films, poor oppressed people of colour, you know, it's just demoralising.
And you were also making films, right? So it was also about where do you put your films?
I had to stop making films because there's so much happening, you know, it's just constant. But there's things happening, we haven't made a public statement yet. It's the same thing about sustainability and like the time to make the whole work. It's just, you have to.
Yeah, this is my question though, because I feel like forced into activism. Like I also organised Trans Film Festival in 2009. And it's similar, it's like I did it because the Lesbian and Gay Film Festival in Snack or Flair wasn't having trans films in the programming, and was really needed. But then I just focused on organising and
Yeah.
this activism around that, and then it really compromised my practice. So it's like this line of like how we're forced into identity and not content making work, and how we're forced into activism and like
Yeah.
being
That's
artists.
interesting.
Mm.
Being forced into activism is very interesting, I think. It's weird because it's like I come from a fashion background as well, so I can see the ways in which one activist or the image of the activist has been kind of like recirculated in a way that is like the 60s, where it's like really popular or it's fashionable to be an activist. You can look like an activist now, right? So what's really interesting about that for me, in just over the last 3 or 4 years that I've been working anyway, is watching activism, or what is defined as activism, change, or stay the same, or like go back to this what I originally imagined an activist to be, which is really good looking, well dressed, just fashionable person, not much to say, or things that speak to people who are interested in politics, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is a political activist. But yeah, being forced into activism is a really interesting way to look at it, just because I feel like sometimes the work of being an activist isn't something that I can legitimately claim. But then at the same time, depends on how I look at it. I do think that some of my work is a form of activism. So it's just weird, like, I don't really know how useful the term is anymore.
Could I say 2 things? One in response to being forced into activism, ultimately isn't everybody, because it's a consequence of not being able to cope with the ongoing injustice and wanting to push back against it. And also, Rasheen, to pick up on your point, like, to me, it's predictable, but also endlessly frustrating that someone who's done something as brilliant as setting up a film festival, obviously has the capacity and range to do brilliant work, is not given the institutional support to be able to go on and continue creating the work that you want to create, as well as supporting the festival. That's just,
Exactly.
That's more down to money, really, and time more than anything. Like, on a practical level, like, we could have hired in people to do all that, then, because that's not a thing. It's sort of a time to bring it on, but no.
it costs a lot to do that.
Yeah, it was just the 2 of us running it, doing everything. Well, that tourism, I feel it's changed a lot these days. Like, I just finished reading Middle Class.
That's what I meant about choosing, like being forced in choosing, because I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of actors who are very privileged choose activism.
Choose that. It's
because
like
they
career
have the
activism.
time and the resources for that.
Yeah.
It's like a hobby.
I wonder how many will still be at it continues once it's become less fashionable and you can't buy t-shirts with feminist across the front.
Well, they'll have got their jobs by then.
Yes.
Yeah. Love to start again.
I'm curious, how often do you guys talk to each other, like your friends or whoever, about like making whatever it is that you're making? So, for example, I'll speak to my mom if I've been in the middle of like 3 very quote unquote important and intense pieces of writing. And so that's done a lot for my general perception of day-to-day life. And it's just really interesting to like explain, or have to explain the writer's like process to someone who's not a writer. And it's really frustrating because it's like I don't want to sound like a precious writer who is like having a meltdown over nothing.
Oh, that comment.
literally over that one comment keeps you up at night.
I'm relating to this in a
I I literally called on the other day. I told mom and I was like, "There's sentences keeping me up." There's like 3 sentences just keeping me awake. It's a thing though, but it seems so eccentric and it seems so weird. But then, like, now I know that I can say to you, like, "Oh my god, like, there's like 3 sentences keeping me awake at night," and you totally get it straight away. So I find that that's what's interesting about it to me. Is like, I think, because remember, it's not saying that she doesn't understand, because everybody understands small details of something that they're good at keeping awake, right? But yeah, it's just difficult. Like, I think black art critics as well are saying to my mom, when like we're not meant to exist, like we literally were never meant to ever be able to be trusted enough to critique art as a job.
And to be considered an authority.
Exactly, as a job. So it's really interesting, like, how, you know, you're inhabiting a position that you yourself know that isn't or wasn't like meant to exist. So it's just really weird that you're just like, it's all absurd. Like, it's all absurd. But yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about legitimacy as well earlier. Yeah, I don't know what my point is. It's just, yeah, it's weird. Writing is a difficult process. But so is making work. It's like, you check in with any of your friends that make work at any given time. There's always like a point where it's going really well, and there's always a point when it's not.
Like a relationship.
Literally.
I feel like it's like that moment, that thing keeping you at night and all of that. It's like you being in love with your work and you can't leave it. Well, that's how I work. I just get so into it that I don't take breaks, and like there in the studio till 3 a.m. or whatever, and I'm like in that last honeymoon period. And then I'm like, oh no, I never want to see this work. It cuts down. You know, it's like a relationship.
And the work always calls you back.
Yeah.
It kind of always kind of calls you back. I'm so there's times when I'm not kind of being active around my work, and then at some point it goes, stop your foolishness out there and get back behind the camera. So hence, it calls you. Well, okay, it calls me. I'm still.
I think maybe this is the which I've only really recently been saying I'm an artist without I'm facilitating programming. All these things and that one label uphold everything or multiple things I do. Also because I don't make work unless I've been asked to and stuff. And it's not that I don't think about things or I'm always constantly vaguely researching and thinking about maybe what I would do. But the only time I actually produce thing is when someone is we need you to produce a thing for this thing and stuff. And because so other than that I'm doing the day job or doing more event-based stuff, which I get paid to do. Other than I'm not I only get paid. I only make work when I'm paid to, which feels a really in ways amazing place because I'm getting something paid to, but then I guess that obviously doesn't happen that often because people don't commission so much as not to re-show things. And then also if you're only making when someone's asking I think about the difference in my practice compared to someone who has loads who goes to the studio every single day and has got this super polished sleek thing. It's really shiny. And stuff. And the different values attributed to it. Or what happens when for a project when I'm okay, this is the fee, I'm actually gonna work out what the Scottish artist will mean hourly rate for this and can only work this amount of hours. But then actually what you produce within that time frame is not anything but I guess at the point I was really fine with it. I was that's what I'm gonna do on this. But once you have people who are a public space looking at it, you sort of want to shout this huge disclaimer around it. And this is because I spent 8 hours.
There's like a really amazing part in it where I think I didn't write about any of this part of the film just because I think it's so sublime that people just need to experience it. But she's like hidden an art film inside of a film, right? And inside the film, there's like a sequence where it just says garbage like across the screen a couple of times, and there's a woman explaining to somebody that your work isn't garbage. It's weird how you can tell that someone's black by just their voice, but yeah, I can tell it's a black woman, and she's saying that your work isn't garbage because you're not talented, it's just garbage because you don't have the tools that you need, or the tools that you have, they weren't made for us to use. So that's why the work is garbage. And so it helps a lot because I was like kind of taking that part of the film as a critique of my own work, or parts of my work that I'm not proud of, or that I don't necessarily think are quote unquote good. That helped a lot because it helped me blame like white supremacy on shit work. But then also it's like it's important to not feel the package. Well, not all of it anyway. But no, I think it helped. It was really freeing to hear someone, you know, she sounded older, black woman, saying that your work wasn't garbage for reasons that weren't your fault as a person who isn't white. And so, yeah, like the conditions, I think with my practice of where my work is going, the things I'm interested in writing about, have a lot more to do with that, like the actual conditions rather than colouring, like that kind of stuff. I think as well, like the process and like things that you actually do as an artist to make certain things that is political, like there is politics in it. And so I think that's what I'm interested in as well, because like as a writer, like I was saying, you're interested in writing again because you don't have to be anywhere, like you can be anywhere you want, and it's like a mobile thing and no one can ever know where you are at any given time. And I was like, actually that's probably why it is such an attractive career for me, because it's like an artist, you don't have to be like it can be site specific obviously, but with writing and things like that, and making things like that, you can just be anywhere and be working from anywhere. So with that type of process, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about criminality and fugitive, that Fred Moten uses. Just the idea of like constantly being on the run, like never really having somewhere to live or somewhere to call home. Having a set of people that you have like a code or like a set of whatever's to talk about, and yeah, I just think that that's really interesting. I think, I've been thinking about the life of an artist or the life of a writer